Get yourself straight, learn how to live free. Addiction is a dead-end road of pain and misery. I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know which way to go.
Hey folks, I'm Jerry the Sober Guy, and welcome to Recovery Today, the only show in the Tri-Cities area that takes a look at addiction up close and personal. We are not affiliated with any organization, institution. The views expressed here are that of Recovery Today, my co-host Deanna, and our guest. I'd like to thank Heritage TV for allowing us to have this program. I think it's long needed and well overdue. Now, my co-host Deanna, so glad to be back with you.
Hi, Jerry.
And we have a special guest today.
We do.
Mary Sue Rumbaugh, a.k.a. Miss Pete. It's all yours.
We want to talk about women and the difference that women have in relation to getting sober and into recovery than men. And there's a lot of different issues that we really have to think about. So one is just women who are challenged to become sober. You know, we've lived in a society where it's okay for mom to have or grandma to have the little blue pill, or occasionally a nip. You know, like even on Walton's Mountain, you know, the little old ladies next door had their moonshine, but it was medicine. And I think that for society as a whole, it's pretty okay for women to take pills and take care of their emotions and all of that. But then stepping over the line becomes
a no-no. Suddenly it's bad mommy, it's bad wife, it's bad spouse, it's bad friend. And I think that with the views that society has and the expectations on women, I think that recovery from addiction is a very different animal for women than it is for men.
right.
I think women face a different challenge. I think the resources aren't there. I think the self-esteem takes a much greater beating. The sense of shame and guilt is so much different for women.
Right.
And it really creates some barriers to ladies being able to get clean and sober.
Because almost always too, you know, and almost always, women that are trying to get clean and sober are doing it because they have children.
Yes.
You know, very seldom do we see single unattached women
Correct.
walk in and say, it's time for me,
Right.
you know, I need some help, I need a change, well, all of that. So when we talk about women with children, we're also talking about a total different mindset, because society wants to, for lack of a better word, spank women for how dare you have children and be an addict.
Yes.
You know, and it's this horrible kind of thing, you know, right? I mean, across the board. And even just something as difficult and simple as going to a 12-step meeting, right? And not, so let me just say we're not bashing men here, really at all.
Good.
We're not, it's just a difference, right? So for the most part, you know, there are single men out there who are getting well and getting into recovery as well, who have children. But for the most part, even going out to a 12-step meeting for a woman involves getting home, getting the kids fed, bathed, whatever, and it's a huge struggle to be able to leave the house and then go to a meeting and come home and effectively parent your children. And in the stereotypical sense, for most guys, you can come home, take care of what you have to, but I need to leave and go, and it's made okay.
Right.
It's not quite the same as having, you know,
Yes.
to deal with all the other issues.
When I got clean and sober, I was a single parent. My daughter was almost 4 years old, and I didn't have childcare available. I didn't have transportation available. So when I was lucky enough to get involved in some local AA meetings, I would have to take my child with me. Luckily, I was in a group that was very understanding and supportive. When I was able to find somebody to watch her, and she would cry because I was walking out the door.
Right.
Because, you know, again, when you live with somebody who's actively addictive, you don't know what's going to happen. My dad would say, when are you going to stay home and be a mother?
Right.
So there was a whole lot of challenges just to try to move through, to be able to get the help that I needed to become the woman that I needed to be.
And isn't that amazing how the pressures come from even outside of that?
Yes.
You know, so when we talk about women with children, we're also talking about there are very few treatment centers that will accept women with children or men with children. I mean, so when
Right.
we're talking children, that could be a whole nother series.
Right.
But in general, women with children, women recovery houses with children.
Right.
You know, I only know of one in Knoxville.
Right.
You know,
There's
the Sisters
nothing up
program
here.
down there, and that's very small and contained. So we have nothing
Right.
for women as parents. You know, and so we also have the whole prototype about women who are pregnant, and you know, there for a while it's illegal to be pregnant. It truly is. It's
Right.
illegal to be pregnant and addicted,
Right.
because if you're using, you could go to jail.
Right. Or we'll take your baby.
Right.
Once you have the child, we can go in and we'll just take your child.
Right.
So it really puts women in the sense of you're now a criminal. So, you know, if my self-esteem is already shot, I don't have resources, and now the one thing in my life that may have been something to encourage me, you've just taken away from me. Why do I even try?
Right.
Why do I try?
Right. Or why do I put myself out there running a risk that somebody's going to find out?
Right. Right. Better yet, let's just keep it all a secret.
Right.
And I'll
So
just
then,
keep doing it.
yeah, and then we look at the other piece of that where that makes women not go to their OB/GYN and get help and not do what's needed, and now they end up in a hospital having a child. DCS gets called,
Right.
and then that whole process starts. you
They've
know.
had no prenatal care.
Right.
They don't have a clue,
Right.
you know. And we wonder why their kids are not as healthy as they could be. The babies are not as healthy.
Right. So challenging. You know, even that, I mean, even when you look at, you know, the world of sex and addiction, you know, that's one of the biggest commodities for women. And you can talk, Jerry.
Oh.
I mean, we're just girls.
I
but
just
you
perked
can
up.
talk. But even with sex, you know, when you think about sex and
Absolutely.
addiction, there's a big commodity that you can trade your body for whatever drug you have, need or are invested in. But the other flip side of that then is a lot of times in the middle of your addiction, you lose track, you stop, periods stop, all of that. So then you start thinking you can't get pregnant.
Correct.
So you're not taking birth control.
Right. And ooh, whoops,
Yeah.
here we go.
So now we're 4 or 5 months pregnant before you ever even realize that you're
Right.
pregnant, and you have all those kind of things and issues that kind of pop in there.
Exactly. It's
And then trying to quit your addiction when you're pregnant,
Yeah.
because that's a major health risk.
Yes.
Mhm.
You know, we see it a lot.
Right.
That you're carrying a baby and you're doing meth, you're doing
Right.
cocaine, you're doing opiates, and you're doing harm to your kids.
Yeah.
And it shows you how strong addiction is, because they keep doing it.
right.
You know, that's sad. That's sad.
And you know, and I don't believe that there is a woman or a mother or a pregnant mother alive that doesn't know that we're not doing the right thing.
Right.
You know,
Oh, I absolutely agree.
we don't need to be told. We know at some level. We know that we are not living the way that we need to. But when you are caught up in the intensity of an addiction, and nobody is there to show you the way out, you don't know how to be different. You don't know what to do differently. You're lost.
And it leads us right back to addiction as a disease, not addiction as a choice.
Right. Nobody in their right mind would choose to live as an active addict. It is a miserable, hopeless, degrading existence. Nobody would make that choice.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. So, you know, we've just kind of gone down that, oh my gosh, everything is wrong. So what is right? I mean, what can we do? What moves differently? How do we help women? You know, so, you know, when we kind of flip that side of it, because there's so many places that we could go with this, and, you know, hopefully one day we'll get a DCS worker who can kind of talk to us about, you know, what they do and how they can be involved. So, so I think we're really kind of going to do a short series as we walk through women in health and women in addiction. So what's one of the first things? So we have a woman out there who just found out she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Advice.
Get to a clinic, get to an OB, get to somebody that you know, and be honest about what's going on with you. so that you can get some help. I think that being able to ask for help, getting some support, getting some people in your corner.
So let's stick with the asking for help thing.
Okay.
Because, that's numero uno.
Right.
Right, and none of us will ask for help.
Until the pen gets great enough.
That's right. So you're
hit
shoved
the
in,
bottom.
That's
right?
You hit your bottom.
Right.
And that's not any different for anything.
Exactly.
For anything. And when we're talking about addiction, let me go back to my cigarettes and caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't quit yet, have you?
Are we
Been
supposed
away for a year and she's still hounding me about cigarettes and caffeine. Dr. Pepper.
Oh, God.
It's this, people, again, my mantra is caffeine and cigarettes are drugs as well. And
Yep.
so when we think about trying to force people into recovery, you also need to think about if you're a smoker or caffeine and we take those away from you, what would you do?
I'd flip out.
Yes, and people do flip out, and people
flip
do
out.
detox from those drugs. And so imagine doing that to a baby if we're talking about a pregnant woman, okay? Because that's really what you're doing. And so at least with opioids, the latest research is that Suboxone is the way to go.
Yes.
That methadone used to be, right, for pregnant women, and it's what we had at the time, so don't make the face,
No,
right?
just-
We're trying to move forward,
Well,
and not to kill the baby,
Right.
okay?
it took me a while to get on this harm reduction kick. and I'm on
It
it
did.
full bore.
Okay.
And I have learned a lot in the last few years about harm reduction and its benefits.
Right.
And I have learned a lot more than I knew about methadone.
Right.
And I just don't have a good outlook on methadone. And to use it today is, to me, it's just, you're not getting anywhere.
Right.
Suboxone, yeah. Remember we had Dr. Reach on and I wanted to horrorize the hell out of him.
Right.
For, just get straight. You gotta have a pill to get rid of a pill. But in the last year or so, that is a great drug. That
It
drug
is.
works wonders. I've seen many, many, many cases of successful people,
That
on
use it.
Suboxone and going back into society and functioning normal.
Right.
So
But there's also
that's to the
cases
naysayers.
that Suboxone really can be used as a detox drug and do well.
Absolutely.
And then we can certainly talk about levels of addiction again, because I'm a really strong proponent that an addict is not an addict is not an addict, although that's what we always said. So that's my mantra, and we'll do that another day. But so going back to pregnant women and Suboxone clinics, and and the whole idea that why replace a pill with a pill? What we know for sure is that babies who are born on methadone, okay, typically have to be hospitalized about 2 weeks. Suboxone, if they're really paying attention, about 4 days.
If 4 days.
We're running about 4 days, and that can be subjective depending on the nurses and the scale that they take and all of that. We're finding that Suboxone babies and mothers do not need as much intensive care as far as DCS, follow-up and all of that, if we can get DCS involved on the front end. So there are things that can happen. Does that mean a mom has to be, or a baby has to be on Suboxone? No. It doesn't mean that at all. Suboxone, there's a paper done by the OBGYN folks and the addictionologists who say that it's safe to breastfeed while on Suboxone. So given harm reduction, we, as much as we would love to say, just say no, 100% relief,
You can't.
well, we haven't been able to go there. We've been saying, that's been the mantra for 100 years.
Right.
And
it's
there are
fair.
people who have done wonderfully
Yes.
with that. But how many times do you say, I'm going to quit smoking, and an hour later you're smoking?
Right.
I'm going to quit smoking, 2 hours later you're smoking. I'm going to quit smoking, 3,
Right.
how many times does it take? So
Right.
the average person, 9 times.
Before
9
that
times
happens.
to be in some form of treatment.
Yeah.
Not just You know,
Yeah.
not just saying I'm not going to do it, but to actually go to treatment
Yeah.
in some form or
It
fashion.
took me
9 times.
It took me over a year to get sober.
Right.
Just kept going in and out, in and out, in
Right.
and out, until I hit enough bottoms where I said, enough. Now I got to do this for real.
Right.
And you know, thank God I did. But it's hard. That's a hard transition
It is a hard
from
transition.
being in the zip code of junkies and drunks to flowing back into society.
Now add a baby. I mean, if you
Yeah, add a
had
baby.
tried to do that with a child,
Right.
even not just a baby child, you know, a teenager who's used to you being the drug addicted mom, so they become the parent and do what they want to do.
Exactly.
And, you know, for most addicted moms, you give the kid money, get them out of the house, get them away
Exactly.
from you so that you can pretend they don't know what you're doing.
Trust
Right.
issues are tough.
Yeah, all
Well,
of that.
Yeah.
and now, you know, now I'm clean and I'm sober, and I want to set some examples, and I want to set some rules. And this child
And I want to be
who's-
the parent.
Right, and the child is going to push every single button and challenge, because that's not been how it's been.
Right, because they've been the parent. And
Right.
so, you know, as Pete and I used to work together at Meg and Magnolia Ridge. I
Yes.
shouldn't just say Meg, but Magnolia Ridge and Willow Ridge and all of that. And we had so many women, their children would come in or they would call in and say, they want me to use again.
Yes,
You know, so
They liked
there's
me
a
better.
definite, they liked me better when I was using.
right.
Which is absolutely the truth. Think about it. If you're a
Sure.
12-year-old and you have whatever you want to do is out there.
No rules.
No,
Right.
right?
No rules.
Right.
Would I not like you better? Hi.
Right.
Because I can manipulate you and learn my own way.
Well, and then if I get sober and I have all this guilt because I've not been this good mom and
Right.
I've not been this good role model, and now I feel like I have to make up for everything, which is impossible to do, and I tend to not set any limits and boundaries because I have my own guilt, it perpetuates the cycle.
Right.
So there is so much to learn when folks are getting clean and sober. It's just such a whole different world. You know, putting down the drink and the drug is the easiest part.
Absolutely.
Learning how to live is what
Change.
is
Yeah.
tough.
To make it become different.
Right.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yes.
And action, the process of doing. That's the hard part.
Yes.
You know, I always said, well, I'm going to get sober. I'm going to get sober after I finish this bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way. You know, that old book, the Vernon Johnson, I'll quit tomorrow.
Right.
Tomorrow never comes.
Right.
You know?
And like we were
It's hard.
talking about before, if I don't have somebody to help me do that, you know, my old friends can't teach me how to stay clean and sober.
Right.
They're doing their thing. You know, if I can't find somebody to use as a role model, to get with some kind of folks that are going to steer me and guide me in a different direction than what I've done,
And not leave me alone.
yes,
You know, we have to add that piece because this is a brain disease.
yes,
And anytime, and so basically when you're getting clean and sober, what you're doing is fighting your own body
yes,
and your own mind.
right.
You know, and so even 20 years later,
Mm-hmm.
people that relapse because they just can't fight themselves anymore.
Right.
And taking a look at those and the kind of things that happen with that. Are we saying that it can't be done? Absolutely not. It certainly can. We have great examples, even within our own community.
Yeah.
You being one, Miss Pete.
Thank
But within our own community, that it can be done, and it can be done successfully over and over and over. And I think that if we can think about what's some basic steps, you know, number one is reaching out to someone.
Right.
You know, good, bad, or indifferent, learning to ask.
Yes.
You know, so someone, anyone, you know, our harm reduction technique, if you're shooting a needle, reaching out to someone who doesn't do needles.
Right.
You know, they might be able to help you not do needles anymore,
Right.
right? And then the next step is, you know, getting to someone who has cut all the other drugs out but alcohol, right?
Or pot.
Or pot,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You know, which is a whole new conversation
Oh, yeah,
on the legalization
exactly.
of
Marijuana.
marijuana.
Yep.
But, you know, so even in that harm reduction, if you can go from being a complete junkie, you know, excuse me, IV, all of that, to at 1 year, all you're doing is smoking pot. That is awesome.
That's
That's
progress.
pretty good, man.
And, but we don't look at it like
No, we
that
don't.
because what we say is it's all or none.
Yeah, that's
Which
the
is-
old
Right.
way.
Yeah.
And so for so many folks, that's just simply not attainable in the beginning.
Right.
You know, we've got to start someplace.
Right. And I like that what you said, in the beginning.
Yes.
And it's remembering that this truly is a step-by-step process.
Yes.
And it would be wonderful if one day you woke up and said, I don't need to do that anymore.
Right.
There are people that have that magic
Right.
happen for them.
Yeah, because
But not very.
Not very many.
Yeah, recovery's a marathon. It's not a
Yeah.
sprint.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and in the old days, you rolled around the floor, you did this. Well, it's a different time today.
Right.
It's a different time for new techniques.
Right.
And so far, I like what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard for me to say because, you know, I'm a dinosaur.
Right.
But I do.
But you know, we have had medications around for addiction
Mm-hmm.
for years.
Yeah, I
Think
took it.
about the first ones for alcoholism.
Yep.
Was, oh God, I can't even remember
Antabuse.
the name. Antabuse.
I took them.
Right.
And I thought I was going to die because I went out and drank.
But there are people who could drink on Antabuse.
I wasn't one of them.
Right? There are people who could. And so in our line of thinking today, if someone's on Suboxone, right, and they can still use, right? So it's that same kind of thing. And yes, Suboxone can be abused. And yes, Suboxone
Sure
can
it
be
can.
your first
Anything can be abused.
drug of addiction.
Right.
But given the climate and what we have available
Yes.
right now for opiate-dependent people and opiate-dependent mothers,
Yes. Just so much
Suboxone
better.
is the deal.
It is. It is truly. And I was, you know, and I was a diehard. You know, gotta get.
I know
clean,
you
gotta
two
get-
were.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I am just so totally amazed and impressed and appreciative that there is something that folks, it really helps their brain chemistry. So they're not out there craving, they're not out there chasing, they're not out there doing the things.
You're not stealing, you're not robbing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and they come and they say, you know, Miss Pete, when I take it, I just feel normal. I'm not high, I don't get high from it, I just feel normal, and I can be with my child.
And
I
for
can-
most of the
You can drive-
population, that's the truth.
Drive a
There,
car.
you know, of course, like everything, there are 10% of the population
Absolutely.
that it gets them high, they abuse
Oh, yeah.
it.
Right.
You know, stick the needle in the neck,
And
all
that's
that
never
kind of
gonna
thing.
end.
No.
Never.
Because human nature is always going to be
Yes.
altered reality,
Yes.
Yes.
if possible.
Yeah.
So.
I'll alter mine with ice cream, thank you.
Yeah, you do that well.
Thank you.
So, okay, so number one step is asking somebody for help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoever somebody could possibly be besides your drug dealer, obviously.
Yeah.
Whether it's your OB, being frank with your OB,
Right.
even if you have to write it all down and hand or her a piece of paper,
Yep.
because sometimes that whole, you have it in your mind you're going to say it, and then you get in there and sit down and you can't because it
Yes.
freaks you out.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of embarrassment and fear
Absolutely.
that comes with
Yeah,
this
you get
disease.
apprehensive when, you know, all of a sudden I'm making a transition here. Just say, like, for instance, I remember when I walked into my first meeting. There was a lot of people there.
Did you walk in by yourself?
No, my brother took me.
Right.
But, yes.
And that's what I wanted
But
you
it was,
to say.
it
Yeah.
was scary.
Yes.
Because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to expect. I was really anxious.
Right.
But the great thing about a support system is they all welcome you.
Right.
You know, they're there for the same purpose you're there for. You know, and it's important that people get a support system. You know, it's hard.
And how do we go about getting one of those? Only by asking for help, showing up at a 12-step meeting, recognizing that yes, you know, you can meet a dealer at a 12-step meeting as
Of course.
fast as you can on the street.
Oh, sure.
Right.
But use what's available in your community.
Right.
If you can't go out, there are meetings online.
Yep.
Chat room online is phenomenal. for the 12-step.
RecoveryWorld.com.
Oh, is that?
It's
Mhm,
great.
okay.
One of them.
It's
Yeah.
really, really good.
So you can start at home without telling anybody
Mhm.
by just going online and starting to look at those and getting in on the chats and start discussing
Yep.
the fear so that the fear becomes shorter
Yep.
and you can get out there and talk.
Get educated.
Get
Go
educated.
to the library, get some books, you know.
Right.
If you don't have money, library cards I think are free,
Yeah.
you know.
So a lot of it is self-education at the beginning if
Yeah.
you're too afraid
Yeah.
to go tell anybody what's going on at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can. You know, some people are so far in they don't have that capability.
Yeah.
Recognizing that You don't have to go to a clinic. There are still residential treatment centers that are phenomenal out there,
Yep.
but not recommended for pregnant women as much anymore
I know.
because of the
Why?
damage it does to the baby.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Yeah, because of the damage it does to the baby.
So where do they go? What happens to
Clinics.
them?
Outpatient.
Outpatient, and then just slowly weaning yourself off and kind of working your way through. I think that one went, oh,
We got,
already?
we
It's
got
like-
the
I
word.
was like, peace, brother.
That's it.
Yeah, like, okay, so women, go find somebody, ask for help, find a partner who can, male, female, whatever, a partner who can kind of go with you, guide you, help say what you need to say, kind of things as you're moving forward. And then hopefully we can do a number of series about what's available for women here, what we really can find. There are a lot of grassroots organizations out there that are really pushing and
Yep.
starting and recognizing there's an issue,
Yep.
you know, so it just be, there's a lot of local communities voting this year. Find out where your local community stands on, you know, if you want a
Getting
sober
well.
community, you cannot vote out treatment centers in your community
Right.
if you want a sober community.
Not in my backyard.
Right, so pay attention to
And
those
that's a
kind of
good
things.
point. You know, I know we're running out of time, but that's a good point. We have to get the message out to the public because the public's really ignorant about addiction. You know, they just see it as them, you know, and they have to grasp the concept that it is a legitimate disease.
Right.
It takes away human freedom and desire. If left unchecked, it's fatal,
Right.
just like the big diseases.
That's right.
Just like the big diseases. But for some reason, the public just doesn't grab that, you know?
Right.
And I think, you know, shows like this get the word out that addiction is a disease. It's a legitimate disease. It kills people every day. You know, and we have to start addressing this. The public has to, you know, they have to.
Okay, and we can talk about that.
That's all
again.
I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Petey.
Yeah,
Good to have
it was
you.
good. I enjoyed
Miss
it.
Pete.
It was fun.
Hopefully we'll have you
Yeah.
back again
Yeah.
soon. Yeah.
And may I add that you have a master's in psychology, right?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't even do your credentials. We
And
counseling
started
she
psychology.
also has, if I'm not mistaken, 30 years of sobriety.
I do. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So here's an example of that. It works because she was that pregnant woman a long time ago who took the steps to get clean and now helps addicts recover from addiction every day. That's good. You know, that's why we have this show. You know, thanks.
If you're not part
Thanks,
of the
pal.
problem, you got to do your
Welcome.
spiel. If you're not part of the
Yeah.
problem.
Well, yeah. That's it, huh?
Yeah.
We're done.
Another half hour, Big Dave. It's over.
It's
over, as Howard Cosell would say. And I'll end the show like I always end it. If you're out there and you're having a problem with addiction and you're not doing anything about it, you're just spreading the disease.
If you're out there in Wally World and you live a life like me, it's time to make a gut check, stop the misery, go get yourself straight, learn how to live free. Addiction is a dead end road of pain and misery. I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know which way to go. The lifestyle I was living wasn't gonna last.